Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for our webinar, The Ultimate Ad Stack. My name is Nikki Reyes and I'm the Marketing Director here at Operative. For our panel today we have JT from MediaOcean and Vikram from Thomson Reuters, as well as our CEO and President Mike Leo from Operative. So JT and Vikram have been very generous with their time with us, so we feel very lucky to have them. Before we begin, I wanted to go over some kind of webinar logistics. So in order to minimize any of the feedback from all of the attendees, we have everybody muted. And if you have any questions, please feel free to post your questions in the GoToWebinar panel. And as we go through the webinar, we'll be answering the questions at the end of the session. And also, we are recording the session, and we will be emailing out the recording within 24 hours. We will also be taking notes during this interactive session. So if you'd like access to those notes, I will also be sending that to you as well. And as a final point for the webcast, we have also created a hashtag for this. So if you have any comments or any feedback on the webinar, please feel free to post it, and we'll be sure to respond to any other questions that you have.
Thank you, Nikki. Very excited about this panel today. This is Mike Leo, CEO of Operative. This is a very high demand for this panel. I think it's the exceptional people we have on here. Vikram Somaiya from Reuters, and JT, the Chief Strategy Officer at MediaOcean. Just a quick commercial about Operative. That we're gonna have most of this be really about the ad stack and the ecosystem. But for a note from the sponsors, Operative is excited about this because we're an important part of the ecosystem, and that we provide really the leading operating system for publishers, and that we openly integrate with just about every ad server out there, and exchanges and all the different kinds of systems. Our client base represents about half, in addition to about half of the top Comscore 50, as well as a lot of others, and we have about 5 billion going through the system. So we're really interested in making sure that that our clients are getting more efficient and that we are integrating with all the different pieces of the system. So now I want to get into our topic today. First, I just want to give a few minutes to both JT and Vikram to introduce themselves, their company, and most importantly, how is their involvement, their company's involvement, make them relevant panelists here to talk about building the ultimate ad stack. Vikram, why don't you start off?
Absolutely. So for those of you who don't know me, Vikram Somaiya, I run global operations and audience in the consumer media division of Thomson Reuters. For those of you who aren't familiar with Thomson Reuters, we are a $15 billion knowledge and data company. I work for specifically the media division, which has two primary components. Our news agency, which a lot of people will be familiar, you'll see Reuters everywhere because we syndicate news. We have 3,000 reporters around the world breaking news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We also have a huge financial data business, and both of those two elements come together in the 17 Reuters.com sites that we service 17 markets globally with. I run all of our global operations and advertising and commercial monetization elements, which is why I am here a little bit to talk about what we've been thinking about with our internal stack, how we've been working with the content that we distribute, and how we would like to work with the agencies that we sell our inventory and audience to.
Thanks, Vikram. JT?
Thanks, Mike and Operative, for having us. My name is JT Batson. I'm Chief Strategy Officer at MediaOcean, which officially came into being on March 1st after a merger between Donovan Data Systems and MediaBank. We're focused on building out the sort of marketing platform of the future, and we come with a lot of history. So DDS and MediaBank were companies that had been in the marketing technology space for actually longer than I've been alive, so for in one instance over 40 years, and have provided systems to buyers and sellers of media that range from planning systems to buying systems to financial systems to sort of pipes or hubs that connect buying and selling systems across all different media types. And it's certainly not as big as Thomson Reuters, but we're about a 800-person company in 6 countries. And last year, around $130 billion worth of media was transacted through our systems. Historically, our main customers have been the large advertising agencies. That's evolved to now a broader business with clients on the media seller side as well as different ad tech vendors. And you know, we're excited to be a part of this and excited about the future of this ecosystem.
So today we're here to talk about disruption and and really how companies, agencies, advertisers, publishers, the people that really add the majority of the value in this ecosystem can take advantage of all of this disruption instead of being hindered by it. Our industry has been blessed by a lot of innovation, as has been made very famous by the Lumascapes by Terry that I'm putting up here. These continue to change on a quarter-by-quarter basis as each company is bought and consolidated, another 5 or 6 come to being to solve really a lot of the problems that are being created for this disruption. And that innovation is critical. Media companies, agencies, advertisers are really trying to figure out how to run an existing business and at the same time adopt all of this innovation, which entrepreneurs and VCs have been generous enough to make sure there's a lot of it out there. The question we're really trying to get to today, go to the next slide, is how do we as companies continue to innovate, to make sure we're taking advantage of the disruption instead of being pushed around by it, but at the same time maintain efficiency and effectiveness, because I think, as all of us are aware, change and efficiency and innovation and efficiency and effectiveness are inversely proportional to each other. So maybe to start off, JT, if you could talk a little bit about what you see within agencies as how they're dealing and how this prisoner's dilemma of which do I choose, innovating or operating in an effective and profitable way, how does that manifest itself within advertisers and agencies?
So I think that's a great question, Mike. I think one of the key challenges we all face in this industry is how do we take advantage of all that great innovation that's going on, either within your own company or within the ecosystem, but at the same time run a business where the wheels don't fall off and ultimately allow you to get to a nice profitable place. And I think with having spent time with publishers and obviously now spend time with a lot of agencies, I think one of the differences around where the world is heading versus where the world has been. In the old days within the agencies, the goal was to leverage your buying might. So you wanted to pull together as much demand as possible to use that as a way to strategically buy inventory on behalf of your advertisers at a more effective and efficient way, mainly around getting a better price or getting access to supply that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get. And while that's still an incredibly key part of how agencies operate, as the world shifts to the digital world where a large swath of the supply, think search and now sort of programmatic buying or biddable inventory, where the size of the bidder or the size of the buyer doesn't necessarily give you a leg up where it obviously does in television and other mediums. And so there's this great opportunity to take advantage of the innovation that's going on out there, but it doesn't necessarily work with your historical business model. So, how do you as a business create revenue lines, create process around, create people around, create technology around these new opportunities, but at the same time still deliver the results under the business construct that you have with your clients. So what we've seen as a sort of the come out of that is the idea of the agency trading desk. So, how do you create a group within a holding company or a group within an agency that can make those investments, that can hire the people, that can create or partner with the right technology as a way to sort of take advantage of the innovation, but still have a business model that works as a part of the, I'd say, the operational efficiency of the overall agency. So, I think that there are a lot of different ways that you can play this, whether it be around how people are organizing their individual client groups versus in television versus digital versus other mediums. So a lot of different ways this plays out, but I think it's a constant struggle that everyone on the buy side is forced to deal with right now.
You bring up some great points. I think especially about it's not just about technology; it's also about the organization and people. Vikram, I know you've been greatly charged with innovation at Thomson Reuters, and I'm again facing this question: innovate or efficiency, and it's historically been one or the other. I know from experience that this is a common struggle within publishers. Not just from a decision-making point of view, but from a political point of view. How do publishers deal with making the decisions about whether to innovate when they know sometimes that's going to lead to some inefficiency in most cases?
Yeah, and let me make one distinction. I think I do represent a group of premium publishers who have historical business models, who have legacy systems, who have very strong brands on the market. So I won't speak for all publishers, but I will say that from what I've seen moving into publishers, we've not done particularly well at innovation or efficiency, right? We've been saddled with a lot of things that we had to bring into the 21st century, and we're still trying to figure out how to do that while smaller, nimbler players are sort of coming in and stealing our lunch. People keep calling publishers dinosaurs, and while I don't think players like social are necessarily humans, they're like feral stoats, nipping at our heels. So if we really want to create a race of lizard men, I think that we need to focus on both innovation and efficiency. And so with what I've been trying to do at Thomson Reuters is we have had a site that is sold on context for years. We know the world has evolved around us. So a lot of what we were building with the new stack was, to JT's point, trying to understand how the world is shifting towards programmatic, but a lot of the focus, and this has been VC-driven and it has been scalability-driven, has been around what has historically been called remnant, right? Let's say 20% of your revenue at most, really, and 100 systems available for it. We work with AdMeld now on programmatic, but there are plenty of other vendors out there who are talking to us. We are looking for more ways to manage that across our direct feeds. How do we get more sophisticated? How do we manage that in sort of with one omnipotent view of how yield works across all of it? And then, most efficiently, how can we ensure that our business processes and all of the business functions that we need to perform around plugging into our SAP financial systems, plugging into our sales force, both technologically and our sales force itself, how do we ensure that those processes don't necessarily switch every 15 minutes? So ensuring that the innovation pendulum doesn't swing so far back that we kind of get hit in the face with it. So it's an ongoing problem, and I think one we have to, we're hoping to at least talk about how we're addressing it a little later today.
All right. Thanks, Vikram. Can we make sure that we get lizard men somewhere in the notes up there?
Hey, Mike, one thing that just hit me as Vikram was talking was, I grew up, I didn't talk much about myself, but I grew up in the sort of ad tech world, the digital ad tech world, and I remember when, at multiple times along my career, the companies where I was at, we launched our product and we built this beautiful UI with all this incredible reporting, and we thought we were going to conquer the world with our great new report. One of the things that I've come to realize over the years is actually the last thing that anyone on the buy or sell side wants is another report from another vendor. And I think it's actually a great way for a lot of us, because I know there are a lot of folks in the vendor space on the call. It's a great thing for a lot of us to internalize. That's actually a great proof point of the struggle. You've got all this innovation going on that's happening in silos, but the folks who actually need to operationalize it are never actually going to see that stuff. They're never going to use it. They're never going to touch it. It may look cool in the sales demo, which is worth, maybe it's worth it for that. But as you think about, how do you take all this great stuff that's going on out there and internalize it and operationalize it, at Mediaocean we have a lot of folks that come in about partnering, and that's going to be a big part of our future around opening up our platform so third parties can come in. But the last thing folks want right now is another report or another UI. They want to pull this stuff together as opposed to end up with something radically different.
Yeah, I think that we've at just about all these conferences, everybody talks about the word fragmentation, and I think Vikram brought up a great point. The significant amount of the investment that has been made to innovation in this space has been for the minority of the revenue. Right?
So actually, Terry, if you're out there, get more deals done on the majority piece of it. Yes. We want more focused on the 80% that sits in our direct deals.
There's a real problem there. There's no money in the majority from a technology systems vendor. So we run $130 billion through our systems. We get paid a fraction of a percent to manage that. We're the planning system, buying system, and their financial system. So the market for workflow technology is actually really crappy. And so if I were an investor or if I were an entrepreneur, I would want to focus on an area where I could make more margin. And so that's why we've seen so many folks start that say they want to change the RFP process, they want to change the buying process, the selling process. But very quickly they realize the only opportunity to make any money is to get in the IO business where they're actually cutting deals, either buying or selling. Now they've built great technology, they've built great innovation, they've done a lot of cool things, but ultimately the fundamental business economics don't allow folks to focus on this.
So JT, you bring up a great point. I think that there are one of the numbers that just sticks out in my mind that's causing a lot of pain in the space is the IAB number or there's two numbers. One is 30% of the revenue is spent on executing the trade. Let's be clear, that's $12 billion. Imagine giving $6 billion to agencies and advertisers to improve the creative process, and $6 billion to publishers to create better relationships with their customers and better content. I think that's the ultimate goal here: is how do we free up that $12 or $15 billion? And the thing that everybody talks about all the time is the inefficiency with all the different systems. But JT, you bring up another point, which is we at Operative we have a similar business model to yours. We're more of an enabling technology and capture 1 to 2% of revenue, not 15 to 50. How much of the inefficiency is happening, do you guys see, because of those monetization business models as opposed to enabling business models? And how much of that is something, for example, Vikram, how much is that when you're thinking about taking control of the ad stack, how much do you take that into consideration?
I mean, we have to, and we're doing it increasingly more and more. There's a fundamental understanding that needs to be established, which is if you want my business, don't compete with my fucking business, right? So if you're going to extract massive margins from me and expect me to use you as some kind of foundational platform,